There is a photograph on the dresser in Marcus Cole's bedroom. It has been there since he was 4 years old. In the photograph, a young man stands in front of a military base somewhere in California. He is wearing a pressed uniform. His posture is perfect. His chin is lifted exactly the way a man lifts his chin when he is trying not to show that something has just broken inside him. The young man in the photograph is not Marcus. It is Joseph Cole, his grandfather. And the reason Joseph Cole's chin is lifted that way, the reason his eyes carry that particular kind of controlled grief, is because someone has just handed him back his application, unsigned, unread, returned with a single sentence that was not even original enough to be cruel. Men like you do not belong in the sky. Marcus has looked at that photograph every morning for 45 years. And every morning before he puts on his uniform and walks out the door, he says the same thing to the young man standing in front of that base. I'm going. For both of us. He just never imagined how far he would actually go. Hi, I'm Luna and this is Poppy. Today's story is not just about one man. It is about what happens when someone is told, clearly, deliberately, without apology, that the sky is not for them. It is about what that rejection does to a family across generations. And it is about a grandson who carried his grandfather's wound so quietly for so long that even the people who loved him most did not fully understand what he was really flying toward. If you have ever inherited someone else's unfinished dream, if you have ever felt the weight of a door that was closed before you were even born, stay with us. This one goes all the way to the moon. Before we begin, if this is your first time here, welcome to Poppy Tallies. We tell stories about real human dignity. Subscribe so you never miss one. And stay until the end, because the moment that changes everything in this story does not happen in space. It happens in a bedroom in Pomona, California, with a notebook nobody knew existed. Joseph Cole was 22 years old when he walked into the recruitment office at March Air Force Base. He had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. He had studied every manual he could find. He had memorized aircraft designations the way other young men memorized baseball statistics. He had written to the base twice asking about the application process. And both times he had received polite, non-committal replies that he chose to interpret as encouragement because there was no one around to tell him otherwise. His mother had pressed his uniform the night before. She had done it slowly, carefully, the way you iron something when you understand that what is inside, it matters. She did not say much. She was not a woman who said much. But when Joseph walked out the door that morning, she held his face in her hands for a moment, just a moment, and looked at him the way mothers look at sons when they are handing them to the world and hoping the world deserves them. Joseph walked the 3 miles to the base. He did not take the bus. He wanted to arrive having done something with his body, having earned the ground beneath, his feet in some small way before the conversation that would define the rest of his life. The recruiting officer's name was Lieutenant Doyle. He was a compact man with pale eyes, and the particular kind of efficiency that comes from never having been asked to question himself. He looked at Joseph's application for approximately 40 seconds. Then he looked up. He did not ask about Joseph's scores. He did not ask about his preparation. He did not ask about any of the 3 years Joseph had spent building toward this room. He said, "We don't have a program for men like you," Joseph said. "I qualify on every measure listed in the application." Lieutenant Doyle slid the papers back across the desk. "The answer is no." He said it the way you say the office is closed or we don't carry that item, without heat, without apology. As if the word no said to a 22-year-old who had walked 3 miles and ironed his uniform and memorized every aircraft designation and received his mother's hands on his face, was simply a neutral transaction. Simply how things were. Joseph picked up his papers. He walked back the 3 miles. He did not say anything to his mother when he got home. He went to his room and he sat on the edge of his bed for a long time. And then he took out a notebook, a small brown notebook with a water-stained cover that he had been carrying in his back pocket for 3 years. And he opened it to a new page and he wrote something down. Nobody knew what he wrote. He closed the notebook and put it in the drawer of his nightstand, and he never applied again. Marcus Cole was born on a Tuesday in April during a rainstorm that his grandmother always described as the loudest she had ever heard. She said the thunder started right as he took his first breath, and that she had taken this as a sign. She never specified a sign of what, but she said it every time she told the story, and she told the story often. And so Marcus grew up believing that there was something about him that had announced itself before he was ready. His grandfather Joseph was 50 years old when Marcus was born. By then, Joseph was working at a machine shop in Ontario. He had worked there for 22 years. He was respected. He was quiet. He fixed things that other people had given up on, and he did it without drama. And he went home at the end of the day and sat in the chair by the window and read. He never talked about the Air Force. He never talked about Lieutenant Doyle. He never talked about the 3 miles he had walked or the 40 seconds the man had spent looking at his application or the way he had come home and sat on the edge of his bed. But sometimes, on weekend afternoons, Joseph would take Marcus to a field at the edge of town where you could watch small planes do their practice runs. They would sit on the hood of Joseph's truck and watch without speaking. And Marcus would look up at the sky and feel something he could not name. Something that was partly wonder and partly longing and partly a low-frequency grief that he did not understand and would not understand for many years. One afternoon, when Marcus was 7 years old, he asked his grandfather, "Did you ever want to fly?" Joseph did not answer right away. He watched a small Cessna bank left and disappear behind a line of eucalyptus trees. Then he said, "More than anything I have ever wanted in my life." Marcus said, "Why didn't you?" Joseph looked at him for a long moment. He said, "Because the sky had rules back then that had nothing to do with flying." Marcus did not fully understand what that meant, but he stored it. The way children store things that feel important before they have the language for importance. He stored it in the place where the things that shape you live before you know they are shaping you. And when he got home that evening, he took a piece of paper from his mother's desk and he drew a rocket ship. He put it on his wall. It stayed there for 11 years. Marcus was 14 when Joseph Cole died. It was a Tuesday in November, which Marcus would later note was the same day of the week he had been born. His grandmother called it symmetry. Marcus called it unbearable. The funeral was small. Machine shop colleagues, neighbors, a few men from the church who had known Joseph for decades and spoke about him with the kind of careful admiration people reserve for people whose depth they sensed but never fully accessed. Nobody talked about the Air Force. Nobody talked about Lieutenant Doyle. Nobody talked about the 3 miles. Marcus sat in the 3rd row and looked at his grandfather's hands, which were folded on his chest, and looked, even now, like the hands of someone prepared to fix something. After the service, Marcus helped carry boxes from Joseph's room to the garage. He found the notebook. It was in the drawer of the nightstand, exactly where Joseph had put it in 1952 after walking home from March Air Force Base. The cover was worn now, and darker with age. And there were several pages that had been added over the years, Marcus could tell, because the handwriting changed as the decades progressed, growing tighter and more deliberate as Joseph got older. Marcus opened it. He read the first entry. It was dated February 14th, 1952. He read it once. Then he closed the notebook and put it in his pocket and did not show it to anyone. He would not tell anyone what was in that first entry for 36 years. But from that day forward, something in Marcus Cole shifted. The rocket ship drawing on his wall stopped being a drawing. It became a direction. Marcus earned his wings on a Friday afternoon in June, under a Florida sky so blue it looked like something that had been painted rather than occurring naturally. His mother flew in from California. She sat in the front row in a yellow dress and cried from the moment the ceremony started until well after it ended, and she did not apologize for any of it. Marcus's grandmother was not there. She had died the year before, at 83. Still telling the story about the thunder on the Tuesday in April when Marcus was born, Marcus looked at the sky as they handed him his wings and thought about his grandfather standing in front of March Air Force Base at 22 with his chin lifted and his papers in his hand. He thought, one of us made it. Then he corrected himself. He thought, we made it. He spent the next several years doing what Marcus Cole did with everything. He worked harder than the situation required, and he did it quietly. And he did not wait for anyone to tell him he had earned his place before he started acting like he had. They gave him aircraft, and he mastered every one of them. They gave him missions, and he completed every one of them. He flew in peacetime and in combat. He flew in daylight and in the dark on moving decks in the middle of the ocean where the margin between precision and catastrophe was measured in feet, and your body had to trust your instruments even when every instinct screamed otherwise. He did not fly because it was easy. He flew because his grandfather never got to. And that distinction between flying for yourself and flying for someone who was never given the chance was something the other pilots could sense in him without being able to name it. It was in the way he moved through a cockpit, the way he treated altitude, the way he looked at the sky before every flight as though checking in with someone. He was the kind of pilot that other pilots watched and said nothing about, because some things are better honored by silence than by words. And in 2008, he applied to NASA's astronaut program for the first time. The selection process was rigorous in the specific way that processes designed to filter excellence from among the already excellent are rigorous, which is to say, it was not about finding who was good enough. Everyone in that room was good enough. It was about finding some smaller number among the good enough, and the criteria for that selection were not always clearly articulated. Marcus made it through the first round. He made it through the second. He did not make the final cut. He received the letter on a Wednesday. He read it once, folded it, put it in a drawer. Then he went to work. He applied again in 2009. He reached the final interview stage. He sat across a long table from a panel of senior NASA personnel and answered their questions with the same quiet precision he brought to everything. He felt, afterward, that he had done well. He felt that he had shown them exactly who he was. He did not make the cut. He applied in 2011. That year, there was a man on the interview panel named Colonel Warren Hargrove. Hargrove was a former shuttle commander with 2 missions to his name and the particular confidence of someone who has been successful enough that they have stopped examining their assumptions. Hargrove looked at Marcus's file for a long time before the interview began. When Marcus walked into the room, Hargrove did not stand. He looked at Marcus the way Lieutenant Doyle had looked at Joseph. Cole's application in 1952 with that particular brand of appraisal that does not, actually, see the person in front of it because it has already decided what it is looking at. Hargrove leaned back. "I've seen candidates like you before," he said. He let that sit for a moment. Then he said, "Mr. Cole, impressive record. Tell me, are you the kind of person who needs to be the symbol, or are you the kind of person who needs to do the work?" The room went quiet. Marcus looked at Hargrove for a moment. He said, "With respect, Colonel, I don't see the distinction. The work is the symbol." Hargrove nodded slowly, the nod of a man who has decided something before the question was even asked. Marcus did not make the cut. After the interview, in the hallway outside the selection room, Marcus stood by a window that looked out over the facility. He could see the training building from there. He could see, in the distance, the outline of a mock-up capsule being moved across the lot on a flatbed truck. He thought about his grandfather. He thought about 40 seconds and a desk and a word that had been said like a transaction. He thought, They are going to have to say no more than 3 times. He was wrong about the number. It took 5. Marcus drove home to see his mother after the 4th rejection. He did not tell her about Hargrove. He did not tell her about the hallway or the window or the flatbed truck. He sat at her kitchen table and ate the food she put in front of him and let her talk. About the neighbors and the garden and whether the persimmon tree in the backyard was going to produce that year. After dinner, he sat on the back porch. His mother came and sat beside him. She did not ask him how the interview had gone. She already knew she could read her son the way people read the sky, through accumulation, through pattern, through the particular quality of silence that followed certain kinds of weather. She said, "Your grandfather applied once." Marcus said, "I know." She said, "You've applied 4 times." He said, "I know." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "He would have applied 5. Marcus looked at her. She was looking at the persimmon tree. She said, "He told me once, a long time ago, that the only reason he'd stopped was because they only let him in the room once. He said if they had let him back in, he would have kept going until one of them understood what they were looking at." Marcus said nothing. His mother said, "Apply again." We are halfway through this story, and what you're seeing right now is not just persistence. It is what happens when someone refuses to let a no define an entire bloodline. If this story is moving you, take a second to like the video. It helps stories like this reach the people who need them. And stay with us, because what happens next does not happen in space. It happens because someone refused to stop trying. Marcus applied a 5th time. He did not see Hargrove on the panel. He sat across from a different set of faces, younger, more varied, carrying the kind of attention that comes from people who have been told to look carefully rather than quickly. He answered every question the way he answered everything, with precision and without apology. He drove back to his apartment and waited. The call came on a Thursday morning in June. He was selected. He was 37 years old. He sat with the phone in his hand for a long time after the call ended. Not celebrating, not crying, just sitting with the weight of what had just happened, with the distance between the machine. Shop in Ontario and this apartment in Houston, and the facility 2 miles away where they were going to teach him to live in space. Then he took out his phone and called his mother. She answered on the first ring. He said, "Mom." She said, "I know." He said, "How do you know?" She said, "Because your grandfather walked 3 miles to that base and walked 3 miles home and never told me. He was going to apply for you until the night before he died." He said it the way he said everything important, quietly, like it was already true. Marcus said, "What do you mean he applied for you?" His mother was quiet. Then she said, "There is something in his notebook you need to read." Marcus spent the next years becoming what he had always been in the process of becoming. He trained. He studied. He cross-referenced spacecraft systems the way he had once cross-referenced aircraft designations. He earned 3 master's degrees. He served as capsule communicator, which meant he was the voice that astronauts in space heard when they needed to hear. Someone from the ground, a role that required him to be calm in exactly the way that the situations he was managing were not. He married Diana, and they had 4 daughters: Genesis, Maya, Joya, and Corinne. They lived in a house in a suburb of Houston that had a persimmon tree in the backyard, which had been Diana's doing. She had planted it the year they moved in without explaining why, and Marcus had not asked. And they had both known that some things do not need to be explained because the people who understand them already understand them. In 2018, he was assigned to his first mission. He would pilot the Crew Dragon to the International Space Station. He would be the first Black astronaut to live there for an extended period. He would spend 168 days in orbit. He would take with him in a small sealed bag approved by NASA a photograph and a notebook. The photograph was of his grandfather at March Air Force Base in 1952. The notebook was Joseph's. From the cupola, the Earth looked like something that had been designed to produce humility. Marcus floated there on his first night aboard the station and looked at the curve of it, the impossible blue of the oceans, the white spiral of a storm system turning slowly off the coast of what he calculated to be West Africa. The thin and fragile line of the atmosphere between all of that life and the absolute silence of space. He thought about Pomona. He thought about the field at the edge of town where he and his grandfather had watched small plains bank left behind a line of eucalyptus trees. He thought about a 7-year-old boy asking, "Why didn't you and a 50-year-old man watching a Cessna disappear before answering?" He took out the notebook. He opened it to the first entry. February 14th, 1952. He had read it once at 14, standing in his grandfather's room with the sound of the funeral reception still coming through the walls. He read it again now, floating 250 miles above the Earth, with the curve of Africa below him and the silence of space in every direction. The entry was not long. Joseph Cole had not been a man who used many words when few would do. He had written, "They said no today. The reason they gave was not a real reason. I know what I know about flying. I know what I can do. They do not know this because they did not ask. I am going to do something I have not done before. I am going to write down the thing I want, not because I believe I will get it, but because I believe that want, written down, stays in the world after the person who wanted it is gone. I want to fly. If I do not, if this country makes that impossible, then I want whoever comes from me to fly. I do not know who that will be. I do not know what it will take, but I believe in the specific stubbornness of blood. I believe that what one generation reaches for, the next generation reaches further. To whoever reads this, the sky is yours. I could not get there. That does not mean it was not ours. It was always ours. Go." Marcus floated in the cupola with the notebook open in his hands. Below him, the lights of West Africa gave way to the darkness of the Atlantic. He stayed there for a long time. The announcement came on a Thursday afternoon in April. Marcus Cole had been selected as pilot of the Artemis II mission. He would fly around the moon. He would travel farther from Earth than any human being had traveled in more than 50 years. He would take 4 people to a distance that most human beings cannot emotionally process, 252,000 miles from everything they had ever known, and he would bring them back. The press conference was held in a white room at Johnson Space Center with cameras from every network and a crowd that had assembled quickly. The way crowds assemble when they sense that something is happening that they will want to be able to say they witnessed. A reporter asked Marcus what it meant to be the first black astronaut assigned to a lunar mission. Marcus looked at the camera for a moment. He said, "I love that question, and I also want to push back on it gently. Because what I genuinely hope, is that we are moving toward a place where this is not Black history or women's history or any particular group's history. I hope this is human history. I hope that one day my daughter's daughters look back at this moment, and what they see is not a milestone for a group. What they see is the story of what people are capable of when they stop telling each other who belongs where." He paused. Then he said, "My grandfather applied to fly in 1952 and was told no. The reason he was told no was not a reason. I am going to the moon. That is 74 years. I carry that distance with me. But I carry it for everyone who has ever been told that the sky belongs to someone else." The room was quiet for a moment. Then it was not quiet. The night before launch, Marcus drove to his mother's house. She was 81 years old now and moved more slowly than she used to, but her eyes had the same quality they had always had, that particular sharpness that comes from a lifetime of paying close attention to things other people had dismissed as ordinary. They sat on the back porch. The persimmon tree had grown large over the years. His mother said, "He would have come with you if he could." Marcus said, "I know," she said, "he did come with you. Every time. To every interview, every rejection, every morning you put on your uniform and walked out the door." Marcus looked at the tree. He said, "There's something I never told you about the notebook." She said, "Tell me." He said, "There were entries after 1952. Not many, but there were some. And in one of them, I think it was written sometime in the early 1970s. I could not be exactly sure. He wrote about a boy he had seen at a field outside of town watching planes. He described the boy in detail, the way he stood, the way he looked at the sky. He said, 'This is him. This is the one who goes.'" His mother was very still. Marcus said, "I was not born yet. He did not know who I was going to be, but he described me exactly. Down to the way I held my head when I was watching something I loved." His mother said nothing for a long time. Then she said, "He always knew." The rocket stood on the pad in the early morning, dark like something that had always been there, like a structure that existed before the people who built it. Marcus sat inside the Orion capsule with his crew and ran through his pre-launch checks. The way he had run through 10,000 pre-flight checks in his career, methodically, completely, with the part of his mind that required precision, while the other part of his mind was somewhere else entirely. He was thinking about a brown notebook with a water-stained cover. He was thinking about 3 miles walked in one direction and 3 miles walked back. He was thinking about his grandfather's hands, folded on his chest in a funeral home in Pomona, looking like the hands of someone prepared to fix something. At 6:35 in the evening, the engines ignited. The force of it pressed him back into his seat with the specific insistence of something that has decided. 8.5 million pounds of thrust, the pad fell away. The sky went from blue to purple to black in less than 3 minutes. And Marcus Cole, born on a Tuesday in April in Pomona, California, grandson of a man who had walked 3 miles to be told no in 40 seconds, left the Earth. They came around the far side of the moon at 9:47 in the evening, Houston time. The moon filled the window. It was not the moon of photographs or documentaries or the grainy footage that Marcus had watched as a child. It was the actual moon, gray and ancient, and enormous and absolutely indifferent to the fact that there were 4 human beings looking at it, from a distance that no human being had achieved in more than 50 years. Marcus floated to the window. He looked. He did not take a photograph. He did not record anything. He just looked, the way his grandfather had looked at planes from the hood of a truck at a field outside of Pomona, with everything in him, without dividing any of it into what could be captured and what would have to be carried. He was 252,000 miles from Earth. He was 3 miles from March Air Force Base. He was exactly where Joseph Cole had written, in a brown notebook in 1952, that one of them would one day be. While Marcus was looking at the moon, his youngest daughter, Corinne, was sitting on the floor of the living room in their house in Houston. She was 11 years old. She was holding the brown notebook. She had found it that afternoon in the box of mission items that Marcus had decided to leave home, items he had decided the moment was too important to photograph, too important to treat as artifact rather than as lived thing. She had opened it to the first page and read the first entry. Then she had read the rest. She called her sister Maya. Maya called Genesis. Genesis called Joya. And the 4 of them sat on the floor of the living room in Houston, each holding a corner of that worn brown notebook, reading their great-great-grandfather's words while their father was looking at the moon. Corinne read the last page aloud. It was an entry Joseph Cole had written in April of 1976. 2 weeks after Marcus was born. It said, "He came." The one I have been describing in this notebook since 1972, when I first saw him at the field. He is here. His name is Marcus. He is a Tuesday child, born in a rainstorm. I held him today. He looked at the ceiling the way I look at the sky. I know this is foolish. I know he is 4 days old, but I know what I know. He is going. And when he goes for all of us, not just for me, not just for our family. For everyone who ever stood in front of a desk and was handed back their application without being seen, the sky was never theirs to give. It was always ours. Fly, Marcus. Fly as far as you can. I will be there. Corinne closed the notebook. Outside the window of the house in Houston, the moon was visible above the roofline. It was exactly full. The crew was asked to record a message for Earth during the return journey. Marcus spoke last. He said, "I want to say something to everyone watching, not about history, not about milestones, about what I can see from here." He paused. From here, the Earth looks like one thing. Not countries, not borders, not the lines we draw and argue about and have been arguing about for as long as we have been arguing. From here, it looks like what it is, one place, carrying everyone who has ever lived. Wrapped in an atmosphere so thin and so fragile that it is genuinely terrifying to look at from the outside. He looked into the camera. My grandfather could not fly because of a rule that had nothing to do with flying. I am at the moon because people decided, slowly and imperfectly and not without tremendous cost, that those rules were not rules at all. They were just fear. And fear, when you get far enough away from it, looks very small. He looked out the window at the Earth. "You look beautiful," he said. "And from up here, you also look like one thing. We are all one people. No matter where you are from or what you look like, this is our planet. That is what it looks like from here. I hope it looks that way from where you are too." The capsule came down in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Diego at 8:07 in the evening. Marcus's mother watched it on television. She was sitting in her chair by the window, the same chair Joseph had sat in for 22 years, reading in the evenings after work. When the capsule hit the water and the recovery team reached it and the hatch opened and Marcus emerged, looking at the sky with the particular expression of someone who has just returned from a great distance and needs a moment before the world fully reconstitutes itself around them. When that happened, Marcus's mother held up the brown notebook. She held it up to the television screen. She said, quietly, to no one in the room, "He went." Then she said, "Did you see?" And in the silence of that room, in a chair by a window in a house in Pomona, California, 74 years after a young man in a pressed uniform had walked 3 miles to be told that the sky was not his, it was easy to believe that someone had. Sometimes, a dream does not belong to just one person. Sometimes, a dream is too large for a single lifetime. And so it gets passed through notebooks, through quiet afternoons in fields, through the particular way a grandfather holds a 4-day-old child and looks at who they are going to be. Joseph Cole applied once and was told no. Marcus Cole applied 5 times and reached the moon. Between those two facts is 74 years, 2 lifetimes. An uncountable number of mornings when it would have been easier to accept the ceiling rather than keep reaching for the sky. What moves us about this story is not the moon. What moves us is the notebook. The act of writing down a want, not because you believe you will get it, but because you believe that want, written down, stays in the world after you are gone. You do not always get to see the thing you reach for, but reaching still matters. Reaching changes what the next person can see from where they are standing. And sometimes, the person who reads your words is floating 252,000 miles from Earth. And they are there because you wrote them down. Do not stop writing. Do not stop reaching. The sky was never theirs to limit. It was always yours. If this story stayed with you, if it made you think about something unfinished that you carry, like this video, and subscribe to Poppy Tallies. And tell us in the comments, is there a dream in your family that was never completed? One that you feel belongs to you now? We read every single one. I'm Luna. This is Poppy, and we'll see you in the next story.